In the year 1603, England stood at a crossroads of history. With the death of Elizabeth I, the last Tudor monarch, the nation faced a time of profound change and uncertainty. Into this vacuum stepped James VI of Scotland, ascending to the English throne as King James I. His arrival marked the unification of the crowns of Scotland and England, but it also set the stage for one of the most scandal-laden, rumor-filled periods in English royal history. From the moment James entered London, the palace became a hotbed of intrigue. Every corner echoed with whispered conversations, shadowed glances, and hushed secrets. Courtiers speculated endlessly about the king's intentions, his alliances, and, most importantly, his personal relationships. The English people, long accustomed to the iron-willed Elizabeth, now found themselves fascinated by a king whose private life was shrouded in both mystery and rumor. Central to the gossip was George Villiers, the man who would become the notorious Lord Buckingham. James's apparent fondness for Buckingham raised eyebrows, creating tension among the aristocracy and giving rise to an array of whispered theories. Was Buckingham merely a political advisor, or did their closeness conceal a more intimate bond? In a court where appearances were everything, these questions fueled endless speculation, and every hallway and drawing room seemed to vibrate with intrigue. It wasn't just personal relationships that captured attention. Political factions within the court saw opportunity in the king's arrival. Aristocrats, each vying for influence, attempted to curry favor or discredit rivals. Spies lurked in corridors, observing every interaction, ready to report back any piece of gossip that could shift power. For James, navigating this complex web of alliances and suspicions would be as critical to his reign as military campaigns or legislative negotiations. As James settled into the palace, rumors multiplied. Stories circulated about secret meetings, coded messages, and clandestine gatherings. Even minor gestures between the king and Buckingham were analyzed and interpreted by eager courtiers. Meanwhile, the common people, through letters, tavern chatter, and public performances, absorbed every hint of scandal, spreading tales of intrigue far beyond the palace walls. Historians would later debate the true nature of James and Buckingham's relationship, but at the time, no one could ignore the effect it had on the court. The mere suggestion of favoritism, intimacy, or scandal could make or break careers. In a world where the king's favor determined everything, whispers became weapons, and rumors wielded more power than proclamations. In this opening chapter of the Stuart era, the stage was set not merely for governance, but for drama. The whispers of the court, the ambitions of the nobility, and the shadows cast by secret alliances would define the early years of James I's reign. As we unravel the layers of intrigue, scandal, and hidden passions, the portrait of a king who was both revered and reviled begins to emerge, painting a complex picture of power, desire, and the relentless scrutiny that accompanied every move of the English monarch. As King James I settled into the grandeur of Whitehall Palace, the corridors echoed not only with the sounds of ceremonial steps, but with whispers that carried tales of ambition, betrayal, and secret alliances. The palace was a living organism, each noble, advisor, and servant playing a role in a grand drama that the public rarely glimpsed. Every gesture, every word, and every favor granted by the king was dissected, speculated upon, and transformed into gossip that could change the course of careers or lives. Central to these intrigues was Lord George Villiers, later known as Lord Buckingham, whose meteoric rise in the king's favor became the source of endless speculation. Courtiers observed the unusually close bond between James and Buckingham, whispering that it went far beyond political patronage. Some suggested that Buckingham held the king's ear in private, influencing policy and appointments to suit his ambitions. Others were more daring in their conjecture, hinting at personal or even romantic connections that fueled both fascination and resentment within the court. The aristocracy, ever alert to shifts in influence, began their subtle maneuvers. Letters carried coded language, alliances formed and dissolved in secret meetings, and spies reported every notable interaction. Nobles vied for the king's attention, attempting to secure positions or sway decisions, while simultaneously undermining rivals with carefully crafted rumors. In this world, a single glance or private word could ripple outward, creating tension and fear among those who considered themselves secure in their power. Beyond Buckingham, numerous figures within the Stuart court became subjects of intrigue. Advisors, diplomats, and courtiers alike found themselves entangled in the web of secrets that James' reign seemed to attract. Rumors of clandestine meetings, mysterious correspondences, and hidden motivations were rife, and even minor incidents were exaggerated into scandalous stories. Servants and lower-ranking officials became inadvertent carriers of gossip, their observations eagerly seized upon by those seeking advantage. James I himself appeared both aware of and indifferent to the swirling rumors. His demeanor could be charming and affable in public, yet shrewd and calculating behind closed doors. The king's private meetings with Buckingham were subject to endless conjecture, with courtiers imagining every possible scenario, from political strategy sessions to intimate discussions. These rumors, whether grounded in reality or fabricated entirely, influenced the court's perception of the monarchy and shaped the political landscape. At the same time, external pressures intensified the intrigue. Parliament watched James carefully, wary of any sign that favoritism or personal relationships might undermine governance. Meanwhile, the public's fascination with the king's personal life fueled pamphlets, ballads, and plays, spreading tales of scandal far beyond the palace walls. The interplay between public opinion, political maneuvering, and personal relationships created a volatile atmosphere where every secret had the potential to erupt into a major scandal. Within this tangled web of ambition and secrecy, James I's reign became a theater of psychological games. Loyalty was tested constantly, friendships were fragile, and enemies lurked behind every smile. Courtiers developed intricate strategies to maintain their positions, balancing favor, influence, and discretion in a world where information was power. Rumors became currency, whispered stories acted as leverage, and the king's every decision could be interpreted as evidence of bias, desire, or manipulation. As this chapter of the Stuart era unfolded, the court emerged as a stage where human nature, ambition, and desire collided. The intricate dance of intrigue and gossip defined James I's early years, and the reputation of those involved often depended as much on perception as on reality. In this climate, Lord Buckingham's rise in influence became emblematic of the potent mix of personal favor, political strategy, and public speculation that characterized the Stuart court. King James I's private life was a labyrinth of mystery and speculation, a subject that both fascinated and scandalized his contemporaries. Unlike his predecessor, Elizabeth I, whose personal life remained strictly private, James's relationships and affinities were constantly scrutinized. Historians and courtiers alike noted his preference for close male companions, the most prominent being George Villiers, Lord Buckingham. Their closeness, the whisper went, was not merely political, but deeply personal, sparking a torrent of rumors that cascaded through the corridors of Whitehall. Court observers reported countless moments where James appeared unusually attentive to Buckingham, conferring with him in private, while other advisors waited in tense silence. Some speculated that these encounters were strategic discussions. Yet the intimacy and frequency of their meetings led many to speculate about a deeper connection. Courtiers, eager to protect their own positions or discredit rivals, were quick to embellish details, transforming ordinary gestures into dramatic tales of intrigue and romance. Beyond Buckingham, James I was rumored to maintain relationships with other influential courtiers and diplomats. Though some were brief and politically motivated, others were whispered to carry personal significance. The king's affection for these individuals, whether platonic or romantic, became fodder for endless gossip, shaping perceptions of his character and his rule. Courtiers meticulously recorded behaviors, gestures, and private conversations, often exaggerating small details into narratives of scandal. Letters and dispatches circulated secretly among nobles, describing late-night meetings, intimate conversations, and subtle favors that were granted to select companions. These communications often served dual purposes: to inform and to manipulate, shaping opinion while advancing personal agendas. In a court where favoritism could dictate wealth and power, every personal connection became a point of leverage, and James's private life was inseparable from the politics of the day. The king's predilection for intimacy with his close companions sparked both admiration and envy. Supporters praised his loyalty and discernment in selecting trusted advisors, while detractors insinuated that James allowed personal relationships to influence matters of state. Rumors suggested that Buckingham not only held sway over social favors, but could even impact military appointments and court promotions. Each whisper of scandal amplified the tension between public duty and private affection, illustrating the precarious balance James had to maintain. Slight gestures were magnified into rumors. A hand on a shoulder, a shared smile, a late-night consultation, all were scrutinized. Courtiers and spies acted as both witnesses and propagators, ensuring that no action went unnoticed. These whispers inevitably reached the Parliament, where members debated the propriety of the king's closeness with certain courtiers. They questioned whether personal favoritism was undermining the impartiality expected of a monarch, stirring political tension and fueling public curiosity. Even among the common people, tales of James's private life circulated, reaching taverns, markets, and streets of London. Ballads, pamphlets, and theatrical performances drew inspiration from the king's rumored relationships, blurring the lines between fact and fiction. What began as quiet speculation within palace walls often evolved into vivid public narratives, shaping James I's image for both contemporaries and posterity. James I himself navigated this web of rumor with a combination of charm, wit, and political acumen. He appeared to embrace his public role while privately cultivating relationships that offered both companionship and counsel. Whether motivated by affection, loyalty, or strategy, these private connections became central to his courtly life. The interplay between personal desire, political advantage, and public perception made James I's reign a complex study in power, intrigue, and human ambition. By examining the king's private relationships, one can see how personal bonds influenced the wider realm of Stuart politics. Buckingham's influence, the whispers surrounding other favored courtiers, and the constant surveillance of James's interactions painted a vivid portrait of a monarch whose private life was inseparable from the intrigue and drama of his court. The stage was set for scandals, conspiracies, and secrets that would echo throughout English history, leaving a legacy of fascination that endures to this day. The intrigues and personal relationships at King James I's court did not remain confined to the walls of Whitehall. Every whispered conversation, Every private consultation and every subtle gesture had ripple effects that extended far into the political and social spheres of England. Parliament watched with increasing scrutiny, suspicious of favoritism, and the king's reliance on a small circle of intimate confidants. The rumors surrounding Buckingham and other courtiers were not merely idle gossip. They shaped decisions, influenced appointments, and affected national policy. Courtiers who fell out of favor faced more than personal disappointment. They risked political exile, the loss of income, and public humiliation. Patronage was everything in Stuart England, and those in Buckingham's orbit often received positions, titles, and privileges that others could only envy. The subtle manipulation of courtly relationships became a form of power, allowing James I to reward loyalty and influence political outcomes without formal decrees. However, this informal system also fueled resentment, creating factions and deepening divisions within the aristocracy. The tension between the monarchy and Parliament intensified as these scandals became increasingly visible. Members of the House of Commons grew concerned that personal favoritism threatened the impartial governance of the kingdom. Debates about taxation, military appointments, and foreign policy were often overshadowed by questions regarding the king's private allegiances. Politicians worried that James's reliance on a select few would undermine England's stability, while the public eagerly consumed news of court gossip, amplifying pressure on the monarchy. Socially, the court scandals fueled a culture of fascination and speculation. Pamphleteers and playwrights seized upon stories of James's relationships, turning rumor into entertainment for the masses. Tales of secret meetings, clandestine correspondences, and subtle intrigues captivated Londoners and spread quickly through taverns and marketplaces. Even those far from the corridors of power felt involved in the drama, as the stories painted vivid pictures of royal life, with heroes, villains, and mysterious confidants lurking behind every corner. These social consequences intertwined with political realities. The spread of rumor allowed common citizens and lesser nobles to exert indirect influence, as public opinion began to weigh on parliamentary debates and courtly decisions. Writers, artists, and commentators amplified certain narratives, shaping the perception of the monarchy and its inner circle. In effect, James I's personal life became inseparable from the political atmosphere of the era, influencing both policy and public sentiment. Internationally, the perception of James's court also had consequences. Ambassadors and foreign dignitaries, aware of the king's rumored favoritism and personal bonds, used such knowledge to inform diplomatic strategies. The whispers of scandal that circulated through London found their way to other European capitals, sometimes undermining James's reputation abroad. Courtiers were keenly aware that favor with the king could elevate them to positions of international importance, or leave them vulnerable to ridicule and political marginalization. Amid these complexities, James I had to balance personal relationships with the demands of kingship. His affection and trust towards select courtiers were carefully weighed against the expectations of Parliament, the public, and foreign powers. The intersection of private desire and public duty was fraught with peril, and every decision carried potential consequences for the stability of the realm. The court's intrigues were no longer mere amusement. They had tangible effects on governance, policy, and the very fabric of English society. The Stuart court, with its complex web of favoritism, rumor, and intrigue, illustrated the delicate interplay between personal relationships and political authority. Every whispered secret, every carefully measured smile, and every subtle act of loyalty shaped the kingdom's social and political landscape. As the scandals of James I's private life intertwined with matters of state, it became clear that the personal was political, and the gossip of Whitehall could reverberate across the entire nation. As James I's reign progressed, the whispers of scandal within Whitehall only grew louder, forming a complex tapestry of intrigue, ambition, and secret maneuvering. Courtiers were no longer just observers of the king's personal life. They had become active participants in a theater of conspiracies where alliances shifted as swiftly as the wind. The closeness between James and Lord Buckingham remained the centerpiece of gossip, its precise nature debated endlessly, both inside and outside the palace walls. Rumors suggested that Buckingham's influence extended far beyond ordinary advisory duties. Some whispered that he shaped policy, appointments, and even military decisions according to his own ambitions. Others speculated on the private, intimate side of their relationship, using these stories to challenge or intimidate rivals. Every movement, every word exchanged in private, became material for speculation. The court, already a hotbed of ambition, was now a volatile mix of fear, fascination, and manipulation. Beyond Buckingham, James's court was rife with other secretive affairs. Subtle alliances formed between diplomats, courtiers, and even servants, creating a network of influence that often operated in shadows. Correspondences carried hidden meanings. Late-night meetings could signify both political strategy and personal loyalty, and casual gestures were interpreted as evidence of favoritism or betrayal. In such an environment, it was nearly impossible to separate reality from rumor. The line between truth and imagination blurred constantly. Intrigues occasionally escalated into outright conspiracies. Secret plots, whether aimed at discrediting rivals or advancing personal agendas, were reported by spies and informants who operated within and beyond the palace. Courtiers learned that intelligence could be weaponized, and information became as valuable as gold. The tension between James's private indulgences and the political maneuvering of his court created an atmosphere of suspense and uncertainty that permeated every corner of Stuart England. These hidden scandals were not without consequences. Parliament remained vigilant, wary that favoritism and secret relationships could destabilize governance. Public fascination amplified the pressure on the monarchy, as ballads, pamphlets, and gossip circulated, documenting every perceived misstep or impropriety. The combination of internal intrigue and external scrutiny meant that James I's decisions were constantly analyzed, his reputation meticulously dissected, and his legacy subtly shaped by the actions of both allies and adversaries. Yet, despite, or perhaps because of, the endless rumors and whispered scandals, James I managed to maintain his authority. He navigated a court where personal loyalty and ambition were inseparable, understanding that the perception of power could be as influential as power itself. The scandals of his reign, though sensationalized, highlighted the delicate balance a monarch had to maintain between private desires and public duty. The legacy of James I's court is enduring. The stories of secret relationships, political favoritism, and whispered conspiracies continue to fascinate historians and the public alike. They reveal a Stuart monarchy alive with complexity, where personal bonds shaped policy and intrigue influenced the fate of the nation. James I's reign serves as a testament to the intricate interplay between human ambition, loyalty, and the intoxicating allure of power. Ultimately, the whispers of Whitehall are more than historical curiosities. They are windows into the dynamics of power and human nature. James I's private life, the influence of Lord Buckingham, and the countless hidden alliances illustrate that the court was not just a center of governance. It was a stage for drama, manipulation, and ambition. These tales of intrigue continue to captivate, reminding us that history is often as much about secrets and scandal as it is about official records and proclamations. As we reflect on the Stuart era, the legacy of James I's reign becomes clear. The personal and political were inseparable, rumors and relationships shaped policy, and the court itself was a microcosm of ambition and intrigue. The echoes of scandal resonate through history, ensuring that the drama of James I's court remains as compelling today as it was 4 centuries ago.